We're talking now about the difference between the short run and the long run. One of the most important differences is that in the long run, all inputs are variable, so you can combine capital and labor in whatever proportions minimize the cost of producing the quantity of output you want to make. Suppose you want to make 20 television sets a week. Well, you have options. You can either use a labor-intensive technique that involves a lot of workers working with very few tools. The labor-intensive technique uses a lot of labor and only a few tools. You could, however, perhaps, produce the same 20 television sets in a week using fewer workers, maybe just one worker, who happens to have a lot of the right tools. So you might use a more capital-intensive technique that uses more capital and less labor. Let me offer a definition to start with. The term technique in economics refers to the way in which a firm combines labor and capital in order to produce its output. A technique of production is defined by the particular combination of inputs it uses to make output. So here's one technique, a few workers with a lot of capital. And here's another technique, a lot of workers with a few tools. This happens to be a labor-intensive technique. It uses a lot of labor and very little capital. This, on the other hand, is a capital-intensive technique. It uses a lot of capital and relatively little labor. What we're going to do in this lecture and the next one is we're going to explore how an economist thinks about the choice of technique. A firm has available to it all of these different possible ways of combining labor and capital to produce output. First, we'll represent those possible combinations with a tool called an isoquant. The isoquant looks a lot like the indifference curves that we studied when we looked behind the demand curve at where it came from. So first, we'll represent the choice of techniques, the menu of techniques that are available to a particular firm. Then, in the next lecture, we'll look at how the firm chooses from among the possible techniques to find the one that minimizes the cost of production. So, let's look first at the firm's technology. The firm's technology is all of those techniques that are available to it, all of the ways that it has of combining labor and capital in order to produce television sets. Let's suppose that we want to find all of those combinations of workers and tools that will produce, let's say, 12 television sets a week. So I'll use this schedule of numbers right here, and my schedule of numbers tells me all of the combinations of labor and capital that will produce 12 television sets a week. So the firm can either use 2 workers, and with those 2 workers use 6 tools, or the firm can add extra workers and use 4 workers instead, and if it uses 4 workers,
Mind bites.